All right, here we go. This is the time. Oh, come on.
Mike, it looks like you're struggling there.
Come on,
Guys.
Paul Bunyan, one string. One string.
I don't think he's got it in him.
I think
I don't
no,
think
he doesn't have it in.
Yes, I can do this.
Let's go. Okay, that's.
I don't know, maybe.
Weenie. All right, guys, enough goofing around. You know what? It's fall. This is absolutely my favorite time of year. It's cool, crisp, but we're going to be talking about fireplaces, fire pits, and also pure fire. So, did you guys get any tips, ideas for our audience about what they can do this fall?
Yeah, I've got a fascinating story before we get there. So, you know, fire, we're pretty blessed. We just click of a button or a strike of a match and we've got fire. But according to Greek mythology, Prometheus, now keep in mind, he was a mere mortal. He played a trick on Zeus. Yes, Zeus, the supreme god of all Greek mythology. Zeus was mad at him, so he said, you know what, I'm taking fire away from all mankind. Prometheus knew how important fire was to the success of mankind, so he snuck up to the forges of Hephaestus and stole a fire band and transported it in a hollow stalk. Now, I bet he wished he had some fire gloves like these. I bet that got pretty hot. And he brought it back to mankind, and ever since then, we've had fire. So pretty amazing story, and they replay this scene at the start of the Olympic Games when a relay of runners transport a torch to the side of the Olympic Games, and that torch is lit in the Temple of Hearts.
I've always wondered why they did that. That's pretty
Kind
good.
of impressive.
Now, guys, I have a word that comes from the manufacturing of fire. How about the word curfew?
Oh,
So some people think that's a bad word.
I didn't like that word at all.
Mike, you never met yours in your life.
Never even heard of it. So back in the 11th century, they used to have communal fires where everybody would gather around the fire. Now what they would do is they would ring a bell and they had a piece of metal that they would cover the fire with. Now this would extinguish the flames, but it would keep the embers in there burning hot. Now when they covered that fire, that piece of metal was called the curfew, and that bell ringing was letting everybody know that it was time to cover the fire. It was curfew.
Wow. Gotcha. All right.
Now, I definitely think that fire can be magical. It's obviously useful, beautiful. There's great ambiance and coziness with fire, but it can also be a little bit dangerous. So I think we have some tips here on how to have the most safe ways to build a wood-burning fire.
And when you're talking about the wood itself for the fire, that's just as important. And we're talking about deciduous woods here, the hardwoods. We're talking about the oaks, the maple, the hickory, also some of the fruit bearing like the apple and the cherry trees. These are all really good species of wood to be burning. But here's a little tip for you. Make sure that you cut this wood 6 months to a year in advance to make sure it has time to dry out.
Yeah.
And Tony, those are the best woods to cook with as well. If you're ever making smoker food, you want those apple woods, that hickory.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think what happens with those softwoods like pine, it has a resin to it too, doesn't it?
It does.
And that produces, so you don't want those either on that.
No, that resin has when it burns, that creosote, and that creosote can be super dangerous. It gets in the flues and the chimneys, and that's why you got to get those things swept, because 25,000 fires every year, that causes $120 million worth of damage every year. My husband will not, we have a wood burner in our house. I'm not allowed to have a fire until the guy has come every year to clean the flue so that I can have a fire.
Find a chimney sweep,
yes,
right?
That's right, absolutely.
And one of the challenges in a wood-burning fireplace in the home particularly is downdrafting. You got to watch for downdrafting. These homes that we're building now are so tight that it's hard to get that draft, which is really the smoke, out of the house. One stud tip: crack a window or a door. It'll help to get that process going. And then also, once you get it going, don't forget to open the damper. Otherwise, you end up with a house full of smoke. I've been there, done that.
And you know, I've got a basement. We added a wood-burning fireplace, and you're right. And a basement, it goes 2 stories high. We cannot get that cold air up through there for the updraft.
Can be a challenge.
Well, every fire needs oxygen, and one way to help add oxygen is with a bellow. So take your bellow, blow air at the base of your fire.
Now, another way to help get oxygen is to put your wood on a grate. So that way there's oxygen coming from underneath. That's also helpful to be able to stick newspaper or something up under there to light it. Now, the other cool thing with these grates is there's something called a FIREDOG. If you've ever seen the grates that have a tall part to the front, we have a picture of it for you. It's called a FIREDOG because it looks like a dog with 4 legs here on this grate, so that's always really fun.
Would that be a hot dog? Would that be a hot dog?
I don't know.
FIREDOG was the Dalmatian.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and I saw another term, andiron. I've always wondered what that was, but FIREDOG makes more sense. It does look like a kind of a dog.
It does.
And of course, when you're going to put a fire together, you're going to need things to help that fire start. And so a couple ideas would be something like this: some kindlings, just some light, thin little wood here that you can.
You got this.
Break it
You
in.
got
Oh,
this.
yeah.
There we go, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
And again, pine cones, things like that can be helpful. Paper and newspaper is a great way to get a fire started. But if you ever had it kind of blow out of the fire, that can be trouble. So here's a little trick: is if you do it together like this, and then you twist it, and you put a little knot in it. This is called a Nantucket knot.
No.
So that helps keep it in there.
Nantucket log. You're supposed to do it like this, and then you tie.
Well,
you tie the twine around.
That's a lot
That's
of work.
nice, but that's also forethought to have scissors and twine with you, and that's not my forte.
Good point.
Or you can just keep the dryer lint and put it in a Pringles can, and then you don't have to worry about all that
Does it
stuff.
have to be Pringles? Can
No,
it be any
it could be
other
the toilet paper roll.
I
Pringles
look,
up there.
I prefer
Yes.
the pine cones. You just torch.
yeah.
Look.
You with
Careful,
the
Jerry.
torch. Well, that gets it
back
started
on.
too.
Look,
My
you got the
goodness.
fire
I
extinguisher,
got it.
right?
Yep, I got it ready right here.
And also, though, with the paper, make sure that you're using paper that doesn't have, like, a lot of people think about things like Christmas paper. That's not always the best idea. Some of those kind of things can have, like, dried inks in them that can cause issues, so just be careful.
Now, speaking of chemicals, Mike, if you can hand me that.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. So a lot of people like to steal lumber from our job site, and they'll take stuff like this, and they'll create their own bonfires with it. Not a particularly good idea, especially this greenish looking lumber. This is treated. This is just soaked in chemicals, especially borate. You burn this, and that stuff will get in your lungs, and it will cause some damage. So please be very careful when you're burning any kind of construction lumber.
Be careful what kind of wood you steal from our wood.
Right.
Now, guys, we do have some good wood here that you should start fires with. Now, we have some deciduous wood here that's been drying out for a couple years, and I'll show you the best way to stack these logs. I know how to make fires, guys.
Sure, Mike.
So the first one is a 3-log stack. Now, what you do is you basically have your starter log, and you just loosely stack so that way there's airflow and there's space, and then you put your kindling, your paper up underneath there, and then you light it. Now, the other one is the teepee. So what you do is you have 3 equal-sized logs, and you stack them up like this so that way it makes the teepee shape, and then you have your kindling underneath there as well. Now you can see here we have what's called a Swedish fire log.
That's pretty
We've
Now
never heard of this one, Mike.
This Swedish fire log is awesome. Now what you do is you basically just take a log that's dried out, you take 4 chainsaw cuts, leave about 4 inches at the bottom so you don't cut all the way through it, and then you pour a little kerosene in, not gas will explode, kerosene or diesel.
And that's your stud tip.
And then you light it, and then this thing will burn on its own without any tending to it for 4 or 5 hours. It's so much fun. And then one more stud tip for you guys. Lonnie was talking about your updrafts earlier, right? So a way to ensure that you get that smoke flowing up your flue and then out, take a little piece of newspaper, light it on fire, and then hold it up top so that heat starts to rise, and it will create its own draft so that way you're not getting smoke backdrafting into your house.
That's a great tip. Wow. All right, guys. Hey, these are great tips. I think we now need to get the show started, or we can sit around that fire for a minute.
Mallows out.
Who's got the marshmallows? Come on, let's go. Get the mallows out.
That is a great tip.
Welcome to Between the Studs. We are Granite Ridge Builders, custom builders serving northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and also parts of southern Michigan. We have been building custom homes for almost 2 decades, and we're really passionate about what we do. So join us today as we explore the processes, the trends, and also tips that characterize today's new home. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back. Today's show is all about fireplaces. Fireplaces have a magical effect on people. They have great emotional feelings and memories. And some of my best memories, obviously, are right in front of the fireplace with my family and friends.
Absolutely. It's really the epitome of coziness and comfort. It's really my favorite place in our home. Now, just the other weekend, we were outside on a cold night having a bonfire to go inside to the fireplace in the basement to warm up. So, I mean, really, it's the perfect place to warm up and create great family memories. Now, when we talk about fireplaces, what does everybody else think of?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Chestnuts. Sit back down.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we're talking about.
Well, no, I guess when I think about fireplaces, I really do think about like the flickering of the flames, the crackling of the fire.
Wait. Crackling of the fire? You mean like snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispie treats? I'm liking this.
Not exactly, but I
Wait,
mean,
guys, this is supposed to be the sentimental part of our show.
you know, like the warmth of the fireplace and the smell of a controlled fire.
I think about all the conversations you have around the fire, drinking hot tea, a lot of times in your cozy pajamas and your fuzzy socks.
It makes the best family pictures, and think about Christmas morning.
Gotta
Kids
love
coming down, gifts out. Yeah, best Christmas mornings.
My favorite part is the mantle above the fireplace. You can decorate it seasonally. Kayla won't let me store my high school trophies there anymore, so they're in a box in the attic. But
That's because they're so small and there's only one.
Participation trophies, Tony.
You know, my big thing about fireplace is just the relaxation time. I mean, when the house is quiet and you can just sit there with your cup of coffee or your hot cocoa, or in Charity's case, a huge glass of wine, and just sit there and just enjoy yourself in that time right there with the fireplace.
Okay, hey, we've got some really, really fun facts for you and stats. What do you guys know just a little bit about fireplaces and what it means to us?
Well, when it comes to our homes, we're all concerned about resale value. And according to the National Association of Realtors, appraisers can typically get 6 to 10% more in appraised value on a home with a fireplace.
Wow.
And historically, and even today, you walk in and it's really the focal point of the home and one of the big talking points.
Now, it is one of the most sought after features to be added to a home, and not just in the great room. We're talking master bedrooms, basements, outdoor fireplaces, even bathrooms. It really is a great sought after feature right now.
And at Granite Ridge Builders, we love fireplaces. And for $4,000 to $6,000, we can put a fireplace in one of these locations mentioned that was going to change your life and your family's life.
I just can't imagine a fireplace in the bathroom.
We've done it.
Warm your feet when you get out of the shower.
Oh, yeah.
One of those big garden tubs, sign me up.
And guys, we talk about outdoor living every single week on this show because it's so important. And the fastest growing uses for fireplaces are outdoor fireplaces under a veranda. Fire pits have remained extremely popular, and it's just growing for us.
Well, fireplaces are absolutely phenomenal, but they're also correlated to a couple different things. Typically, we think about Christmas and we think about Santa Claus. And the reason for that is very good. There are many stories that correlate these three things together.
Now, talking about Christmas and Santa Claus, I got another Greek mythology story. So it's actually said that Santa Claus got its origination from Thor. And yes, I know what you're thinking, Chris Hemsworth, how does that really tie into Santa Claus? But if you've seen the new Thor Love and Thunder, he's actually pulled in a chariot by 2 goats. And through Icelandic translation, those goats are Gnasher and Cracker. So imagine Thor saying, on Gnasher and Cracker. And in Greek mythology, Thor was actually a genial, tubby man with a white beard, and he always wore red, and fire was his element. So he actually would come in through houses through the fireplace. So you can kind of see where the correlation lies.
Well, stockings, fireplace, Christmas, they all go together. And the story goes, when it comes to stockings, there was an impoverished man who was a widow, and he had 3 daughters, and he was really worried about his daughters that they would never marry.
And so the story goes that St. Nicholas heard about this family and had mercy on them. He jumped down their chimney one night and dropped a bunch of gold coins into their stockings, which happened to be hung up by the fireplace to dry over the evening. So, again, that's kind of how we had these ideas of stockings. So some people do something nice and decorative. Other people keep it very simple, like a regular sock.
You know what happens to some people like Tony? They get cold.
And that helps me build another fire in the fireplace.
Okay, guys, I think these stories were great. We're going to get back to fireplaces. You do not want to miss this next section.
And why is mine empty?
I was going to say, are there any little coins in
Empty's better than cold.
At least you don't have coal.
That's
Yeah.
so cool, yeah. So since Prometheus brought fire to man, we know that fire has been in the furthest past of mankind. So we know fire has been a big part of life in general.
Right, and we have evidence around 500 BC that men brought the fire inside their home. They had a pit there, they would cook on it, they'd find warmth there, and it would shoot up through the roof. They had a hole in the roof.
And even as far back as into the Roman era, we see that the bakers would use these large walk-in fireplaces to do cooking and that sort of thing. And they had a flue outside to take the smoke and put it outside.
Right. And you do have to deal with the smoke. And in 1066, they invented something we call the chimney, which allowed us to bring the fireplace from outside walls to inside walls, and through the chimney, the smoke would flow. You could even go through a second floor and then up through the roof, which was an incredible invention at that time.
Very efficient, again, being able to have heat then travel upwards.
And we have 2-story homes as a result of that.
So when we look into the history of the fireplace again, though, we get to about the 1700s where we find out about the Franklin stove invented by Benjamin Franklin. And this one is made of cast iron. We all know the qualities of cast iron. It retains heat for a good time. So when you have this, cast iron stove, you're really renovating the way we're heating these homes.
Then in 1796, Count Rumsford invented this new style of fireplace. It had a splayed box. And that allowed the fire to move quickly into the room. And you mentioned this, there was also splayed chairs, right?
Yeah, so those splayed chairs would have been called wingback chairs, and that again helps bring that heat in.
Right. And then as we move forward to today, for the last 40 or so years, we've been setting a lot of gas fireplaces, vent-free and direct vent fireplaces. They are 80 to 95% efficient, so it makes a lot of sense to flip the switch and bring the heat and the ambience into the room.
And the electric fireplace was actually invented in the early 1900s, but it didn't come into prominence till the 1950s. But we're definitely seeing a huge resurgence of it now with all the new technology where these fires look and sound like real fire and are able to replace the danger of having an open flame inside the house.
Right, so chimneys are in, chimneys are out. Poor Santa Claus on those direct vent and vent-free fireplaces, he's got a problem.
Well, Luke, there's nothing better on a fall day than some hot apple cider up next to a fireplace.
It is hot, but very good. So let's talk about the anatomy of a fireplace, because there's a lot of parts and pieces that have to work together to make it safe to be able to have a fire inside a house, right?
So you're telling me we're going to find out what's between the studs or behind the studs here?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
So let's start at the top and work our way down. So first you have the chimney cap. Now, a chimney cap is exactly what it sounds like. It's the cap at the top that protects any weather. There's usually a mesh screen to keep any birds out or anything like that, and it is just a protector of the flue.
Right, and we talked, there's going to be a lot of different fireplaces we talk about. We're mainly focused on what a wood burner is in this anatomy. So you talk about the cap, then when we're looking at the masonry on the outside of the house, the very top part of the masonry is called the chimney crown. And typically that's like a limestone cap, and that's what protects all the masonry and the flue below.
Yeah, and from the crown on the inside of the flue all the way down to the firebox, you're going to have flue tiles. Now these are clay tiles, and these are stacked very tightly together, and that protects everything and makes sure that there's efficient airflow out of the flue.
Right. Now we got to talk about the mortar joints. So the mortar joints are kind of what you see here, where it's kind of the glue or the bond that's going to hold all these masonry pieces, whether it's stone, whether it's brick, whether it's those clay tiles. It holds them all together to make sure this stands tall.
Yeah, and the next couple of components are the smoke chamber and the smoke shelf. Now, the smoke chamber is very important because what it does is it allows the smoke to actually go up, it will curl, it'll mix with that outside air, and then it can start working its way out. Now, that smoke shelf is a protector against any downdrafts that are coming in through that flue and make sure that that smoke goes up instead of coming back into your house.
Right. Now, almost just as important as those shelves is the damper, and this is one part that actually moves in this anatomy, and usually there's a lever somewhere that you can open the damper up or close it. You're going to have it closed to keep the warm air from your house wanting to escape out of that flue, but then when you're using the fireplace you open it up so that way then the smoke can start rising.
Okay, the next component is the lintel. Now this runs the entire frame of the firebox. It's a metal piece that basically holds that face brick on around your surround.
Right, and you said face bricks, that's going to be the brick on the outside here, and basically what that does is it keeps any combustible material safe, so that way it doesn't catch fire. So brick stone is not combustible. And then on top of that, then you've got your firebox, and you also mentioned that. So that's basically the box that you see the fire is in, right? And that's going to also be a non-combustible material, and it's usually splayed, so a lot of the heat will want to push out into the room.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see that there's a lot of science and aerodynamics involved in making sure that this is a safe and effective way to heat your home.
Right. Well, I'm getting low on cider.
Let's refill.
I love talking about fireplaces, and there are a lot of different types of fireplaces that we should probably talk about. One being wood burning. Now this is one that has been popular throughout the years. It kind of goes in and out of style, but you cannot beat the ambiance, the logs burning, the smell of a wood burning fire. Now the only thing to think about is it could have some limitations when it comes to designing your floor plan of where that wood burning fireplace could go because of the chimney.
Right, and you mentioned limitations. Let's talk about electric fireplaces. Those really don't have any limitations whatsoever, and they've come a long way. I remember the first one we saw, we were all like, that doesn't really look all that great, and now they look really fantastic. You can put them pretty much anywhere, and most of them have a heating element in it, so it acts as a space heater, so it can heat up a small area.
And you can do them built-in or hung on the wall, all sorts of options with electric. Now my personal favorite probably is direct vent. There's no mess, there's the glass, it looks so wonderful. It's usually easy with a remote or a switch on the wall. We love these direct vent fireplaces. Now interesting enough, at the very beginning of the show I mentioned FIREDOG. this fireplace here has that FIREDOG attached with that grate like we were talking about.
Right. Now there's vent-free as well. And again, 20 years ago, it didn't probably get the greatest name. The way vent-free works is it burns so efficiently that you don't need to have a glass and you don't need to have a flue. All it really does is puts off a little bit of moisture in the air. There used to be a smell associated with it. They've fixed that. The technology's gotten better on it, and those are another that you can put in areas that you wouldn't be able to put a wood burner or even a direct vent.
Exactly, especially if you're talking remodel or something like that, vent-free could be the way to go if you're not a fan of electric. Now, we talk about this all the time, outdoor. We cannot say enough about outdoor fireplaces. You can do a wood burning, or you could also do gas, all sorts of options there. We typically don't recommend direct vent, but that's a great place for a vent-free fireplace is outdoors. And don't forget about your fire pits as well.
Yeah, now let's jump back in history. What about a stove fireplace?
Ooh.
You know, you walk into a room and it's got a big like masonry stone on the ground. You got this fireplace sitting there and you'll heat it up and it'll heat up the room, and you can also cook your eggs on it in the morning.
Now, one that people might not have heard of, you've probably seen those clay fireplaces. You usually see them outdoors. They're kind of a big unit put together. They're actually called chimineas. So it's an interesting way to say those clay fireplaces. You can face them with all sorts of different materials, but again, more of a natural wood burner for the outside.
Yeah, and I've got one bonus one.
Okay.
At the International Builder Show, we saw a vapor fireplace, and they backlit the vapor, and the vapor, when it comes out, looks very similar to a flame. Got to check it out.
All right, we love it.
One of the world-renowned architects, Frank Lloyd Wright, he really believed that the fireplace and the hearth was the beginning of the house and the home, and that set the entire tone for what everyone was going to see when they walked in. It was really a gathering place for everyone. They would even go as far as putting sayings above the fireplaces and family credos above those because it was such an important part of the home.
Well, we've talked about that. It's where you gather. It's where you spend time with your family. So you really want it to be someplace that speaks to you. So you want it to be your style. And that really begins with what's on the front of your fireplace. And we can do so many different things. You see here behind us, we have stack stone, we have brick. You can see in front of us, we have different types of stone here. We have some other kinds of brick. We have beautiful tile. We have hundreds of tiles here. This Art Deco tile. Really, it can have your style, whatever your style is. Your fireplace can be that style.
And part of that style is, do you like whatever the material is going up to the mantle height? Or do you like it going all the way up to the ceiling? Some people like to really decorate above where that mantle is, so they may not go to the ceiling with the brick or the stone or the tile. Other people, they want to make sure that people's eyes go all the way to the ceiling with that natural front.
Some people really want the front of the fireplace, whether it's the stone or the brick, they want that to be the art. And so they don't even have a mantle on there. They want whatever that front is to be the art of the fireplace.
Speaking of the mantle, you have all different types of mantle opportunities when it comes to stained, wood beam, or painted. You can do the wood surrounds that go on both sides of it, once again, to just kind of frame in that fireplace and that fireplace style.
That's right. You can also do hearth or no hearth. So many different options. We have them all here for you to see. Come on in and let us show you.
One of the most popular questions that I receive as a designer when somebody has a fireplace is, how do I arrange my furniture, especially when I want the TV in the same room?
Well, there's several different ways. There could be a conventional way to arrange your furniture, adjacent, intimate, formal.
Absolutely, all sorts of different ones, and even the casual side of things. So what we have here is two chairs facing each other, and this is going to create a lot more conversation. And the fireplace and the TV are just in the background, not much of a focal point. Now, a really popular one would probably be to move the chairs where it faces the TV and fireplace. This is a great way to do it, especially if this is your main living area. However, you want to make sure you have enough depth in the room that your chairs or sofa could be far enough away that you're not really looking up super far for your neck to watch the TV. Now, I love the TV above the fireplace, but you have to get the right size and scale. You don't want your TV to be 70, 80 inches and your fireplace to be smaller. So if you do want a larger TV, I might suggest putting it on the side of the fireplace.
And this is a great option, especially if you have a smaller room too, because when your TV is above your fireplace, you need some extra space so that your neck isn't looking straight up. So when you put your TV next to the fireplace, you also could add some bookcases and have some additional storage as well.
Absolutely, and then it opens you up to have your furniture in some different places. When you have it next to the fireplace, you could maybe do a sectional, and then that way you have viewing area all around the room. You could again move your furniture to where you have something facing the TV, and then maybe the other chair is facing the fireplace. So lots of different options to rearrange your room, lots of important tips to consider. And the one thing I would say, when you go to sell your home, you might not have your home set up the same way when you're living in it as when you go to sell it. You want to make sure that furniture is all out of the way, and when you walk into that room with a fireplace, that's the first thing you see, and everything else is on the walls. So some great tips. We have great pictures for you to take a look at. Oh, I love the fireplace.
Yeah. Well, there's so many famous and iconic fireplaces. The first one would be in the Titanic, which was located in the smoking room.
Another one is in the Home Alone movie. Not the scary thing, down in the basement, the furnace, but the fireplace.
We mentioned earlier the White House, and the fireplace in the state dining room at the White House is gorgeous. And then we love Frank Lloyd Wright, but his fireplace located in his Oak Park home.
Now let me just be a little bit celebrity here right now. Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, they have a really cool fireplace in their house.
Now there's a lot of other fireplaces that we don't associate with a person or a show. Look at some of these gorgeous fireplaces.
They're so unique. They have really cool features. I mean, this one looks like a tree even.
Well, there's so much creativity and thought that's gone into these fireplaces, so it just shows you can do just about anything with your fireplace.
Okay, what'd you guys think today?
Oh,
I love
fires are great.
fireplaces. Fire. Okay, we have had a lot of fun today. Hopefully you guys did too. We got to close. What did you guys find the most interesting? Mine was this, memories around the fireplace. I just can't tell you. It's some of my favorite memories.
Of course, I just love starting fires, so it's just fun. All the different kind of things like that you could.
Oh, come
ahead, yeah,
on,
bring it.
Izzy.
There we go.
Whatever.
You know, I like learning about which kind of woods that you should and should not burn.
I love all the different materials we can use on the front of fireplaces.
And I like this idea of taking a wood-burning fireplace and putting it on the outside veranda, on your patio or porch. Ooh.
I tell you what, the smoke from a fire is vindictive. Doesn't matter where you move around the fire circle, it is following you.
That's why we have the safety glass, just in case.
What I love is all the alternatives to a wood-burning fireplace that we could put in houses. So the direct vents, the vent-freeze, the electric fireplaces.
And I think it's really helpful to learn how to stage your home when you have a fireplace and a TV for the best ambiance.
Okay, thank you guys for staying with us today. Hope you found it interesting. Kayla, would you go ahead and close?
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please pick up the phone and give us a call. Visit our website, or even better yet, come in our front doors. We would love to show you all about fireplaces.
Lonnie, are you tearing up? Are you emotional?
Mike, are you sure this was cut
like
a couple days ago, or was this supposed to be a year ago?
3 hours of burn.
We're ready to go.
Cool.
Get the hot dogs out.
Where's the hot dogs?
I guess.
Mike, what are you doing?
Come on.
Wait, no, he just blew it. Jeez,
Real, sorry.
that's not the one yet.
We're talking master bedrooms, basements, outdoor fireplaces, even bathrooms. It really is a great sought-after feature right now.
Thank you, Kayla, for sharing with the audience my lines.
Oh, shoot! I'm sorry.
All right, reduced salary for Kayla.